Hello, everybody. Today I have a special guest. I am joined by Shayne Hall, or if any of you know him on Discord, it's Us, which rhymes with sauce, apparently. He is just fresh off running the S-Bot Toronto. Welcome to the channel.
Cheers. Good to be here.
So, this was, if I noticed correctly, the biggest North American tournament so far.
I don't know that for a fact. That sounds cool if it's true. We had, I believe, 54 people signed up, and then a couple people only came Saturday, and then a couple people only came Sunday. So it ended up being about like 51 players ish. So
That's still pretty big, though. I never understand why people kind of drop out on the second day. I suppose if they've had a rough couple of games, maybe.
yeah, something like that, or just other commitments, or not feeling well, whatever it is, right? So
100%. So, how did the event go? What were your kind of feelings about it?
Uh, the whole thing was a little bit like cobbled together. We had a lot of help. Andrew from Canhammer, he's from Ottawa. He came down with 20 boards worth of terrain and all the mats and everything for those tables. Myself and Val prepared the other like 10-ish, and then that was more or less it. We had a lot of sponsors, X Planet Games, we had Black Knight Games, Wheels and Wings, a few other ones as well, donating prizes and also other terrain pieces, the chess clocks that we needed for the event, all kinds of other stuff. So like all kinds of help in the world. The community is super supportive.
No, amazing. That's exactly what you want. I mean, that is one of the best things about the Warhammer community. Everyone does kind of pull together, and it is really nice to see.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was blown away by the support and by everyone's enthusiasm. It was a great time for sure.
Ah, amazing. So, you said chess clocks. Was that something that you guys were using at the event?
Yeah, it was an optional rule in our pack. Basically, if both players wanted to have a chess clock, just for primarily the main thing was is if people were late, we had a bit of a delay starting day two. The Toronto Marathon was on the same day, and
Oh, okay.
several people had trouble getting to the event with the marathon blocking the streets.
Okay,
Uh,
I thought you were going to say that some people had been on the marathon and then come
no,
over and
I
started
mean
to play some
that's as far as
games.
I know. Possible, but I don't know. But yeah, we I think only over the course of the whole tournament, probably only about ten tables used them. But it's nice to have when you want it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. Were the tables that you're using them, were they more the competitive players, or was it kind of more just kind of people that didn't know the game too much, would you say?
I would say it was a pretty wide mix. There were definitely some people there who were there to win, and there who brought kind of what you would expect list wise. But there was also 20 people who I don't know if it was their first old world tournament or if they just hadn't played much recently or something, but basically needed a lot of help with rule stuff, but we got through.
I mean, that's always to be expected in an event. I mean, like, there is a lot of rules in Old World. I think even the grizzled veterans that have been playing for the last like 7, 8 months still need a lot of help. Like, everyone's still getting stuff wrong. It's still a really new game, and there's a hell of a lot of rules.
Yeah, that's true. Myself, anytime skirmishers are involved, I need to go read the skirmisher section again. So, and I imagine that's a pretty common experience for everyone because it's pretty confusing.
Like, I think an event like between those 5 games, there's going to be one game where you're just like, nah, that's bullshit. That's not true. That's not a real rule. And then you sit there for 5 minutes looking through and you're like, oh, okay, I was wrong. That's fine.
Yeah,
Like, you can do that. Like, every time someone who's never played against, say, Quick Shot, for instance, and the Iron
yep.
Drake shooting at them just calls bullshit straight away. And I always get it when it's some kind of like magic spell I haven't seen before, because obviously I don't do that.
Yeah,
So
that's the stereotype. Yeah, dwarf players don't know how magic works, and then undead players don't know how fleeing works. Chaos doesn't know how shooting works. It's just you just don't encounter those things in your games, so you just never really have to dig into all the weird little intricacies that come up. So
the same as the Khemri players not knowing how like minus the sight and cover and all that kind of
yep,
stuff
yeah,
works, because they don't
cover,
need it, do they?
yeah, for sure.
So what were your kind of takeaways from it? What were the kind of the strongest lists and the coolest armies and stuff like that?
So As far as the coolest armies, we at the event did like a democratic one, like a ranked choice ballot, and everyone decided. I agreed with this too, that Caleb's Squig Bretonian army was the coolest. As far as I understand, they were all like custom minis too. I don't know if he had some kind of 3D printed baseline to it, but there's a lot of sculpting and a lot of like really intricate, colorful paint jobs. There was a really nice demons army.
This is Caleb's army,
That
and yeah,
is,
can 100% what you mean. That is absolutely stunning.
yeah, it was. It's all extremely converted and themed. All of those winged squigs are Pegasus Knights, of course. He's got the Age of Sigmar Goblin Warband guy with the pulling the squig as the cannons.
Brilliant.
Yeah, just beautiful, beautiful army, and also very good on the tabletop.
Yeah, it looks absolutely crazy. To be fair, I've never seen anyone try and do stuff like that. That's so imaginative. It's brilliant.
Yeah, obviously, he loves orcs and goblins and just wanted to, play the best army. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Claudio's Wolves of the Sea Army also did very well at the tournament. Yeah, he was second in best general because he was one draw, 4 wins, so he did quite well. He was at the top tables most of the day. From what I understand, he thought this was like kind of like a joke army, but it actually played really well. So I'm not surprised personally because I think it's sweet.
Yeah, so I've been
Um,
practicing into the Wolves of the Sea quite a bit, and
mhm.
you kind of it's just this sea of stuff that you've got to try and kill. Like it's actually quite hard to deal with for the amount of bodies that they can get on, and then the skin wolves are actually really really good. I don't know if he running any skin wolves in this
He
list.
does, yeah. They're at the top left corner there.
Those things are no joke on the tabletop.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. They have a bit of a niche, but they're quite good in that role. They're sort of somewhere between discount Pegasus Knights and Forsaken. They have like some randomness to them and some variability, but also they're like fast Swift Strider skirmishers. So
Yeah, and they can buff themselves up to be quite a high toughness.
Eric from Eric's Hobby Workshop on YouTube. I believe this is his army. He helped Val and me out with a whole bunch of terrain for the tournament as well. He's like a well-known like hobbyist in our community. He provided, I think, like 15 hills or something for our boards, so it
Ah,
was a big help. His army did quite well. I think he was 3-2 on the day.
oh, what a great guy! Like that's the kind of people that you want in the hobby, and the army does it great. I love it. It's so classic. The goblin green bases, love it.
Yep, old school. Yeah, for sure. That was a pretty army too. This is, I believe, a high elf army. We didn't have any wood elves at the event.
Zero wood elves.
Yeah, there was 10 high elves and 0 wood elves, which was something.
Yeah, so everybody had a much funner event then.
I guess, yeah, you could say that way. There was a lot less pillars of fire than other places in the world, I guess.
Out of all of those high elf armies, how many dragons were there? That's the real question.
The whole tournament only had 23. So 23
Oh.
among 54 army lists, which is, I would say, probably under what I would have expected to see. But this was the weekend after, or maybe 2 weekends after LGT with the big Bretonia results. So I think everyone was thinking about the big Bretonian boogeyman. So
They are a boogeyman into those dragons. They can deal with them so well. The exiles list is amazing, and I know obviously Dr. Blackseal didn't use the exiles, but he's been playing Bretonia for years. So I think just be afraid of all of it. I think.
yeah, for sure. I personally have played quite a bit of Exiles. I know I definitely have a game plan for dragon opponents because that's like a lot of the time what you're going to face. But generally, I'm not even trying to kill them. I'm just trying to like play alongside them and blow the falcon horn, and then limit the damage they can do. So I personally don't have the heroism Baron in my army, but I know a lot of people like that. So
Yeah, because what were you using when we played? It was exiles when we had a game, wasn't it?
yep. I had the Frontier Axe and the Virtue of Knightly Temper on my Baron. So he
Nice.
is respectable into a dragon, but not he's not there to challenge and fight them. His primary goal is to like get into a unit and rack up 5 or 6 combat resolution if you can. So yeah.
Yeah, and literally just kill something, flee away, get the small win, because that's what it's all about.
Yep, exactly. Yep,
Well,
precisely.
only in competitive play. If you're playing against your mates at home, it's all about fun games.
This
Uh,
is the really nice Demon Army by Danny McDonald. He is another tournament organizer in Ontario. He's based in Ottawa, I believe. He is, I believe, running a Highlander tournament in the near future, in the next few months. So
Okay.
only one of every unit, just for fun, I guess.
There can only be one.
Yeah, exactly. His army is beautiful. This army, I believe, won the best painted award because Caleb won the best overall. So we split it up. I honestly, I don't know. I think this army, in terms of like actual painting quality, this one was probably the top army. But Caleb's army was so unique and so finely converted or sculpted that I guess more people were impressed by that. But I thought this army was completely beautiful, and it had a nice
Yeah.
display board too.
I suppose they're at different ends of the spectrum, aren't they? So one's like completely imaginative, looking stunning, and then this is just technically a really beautiful looking army.
Yeah, for sure. And he has the old Forge World Bloodthirster model, which is like a classic, really nice soul grinder, just like nice list. And it's demons, so you don't see a lot of demons, so it's like something unique.
Yeah. How did he do in the tournament overall?
2, 2, and 1. So 1 draw, 2 wins, 2 loss.
Oh, that's really respectable for a Demon's army.
Probably about as good as you could have hoped. Looks like he lost against 2 high elf players, so probably some Sisters of Avalorn.
Yeah, with the magical shooting,
magic shots,
ruining
yeah.
his day. So this one, I was super excited about.
Oh, the
We've got-
Slayer army. Yeah, this
Yeah.
army was unbelievable. I did not expect this army to do well. After day 1, he was in the lead or tied for the lead for the best Forces of Fantasy army. I was blown away by that. And he had some stiff opponents on day 2. He played against, I think it was Charlotte and Claudio, who were both in the top 5 at the end of the day. Had a bit of a come to reality, but his army was fantastic, and like he won best sportsman at our event, so obviously everyone had a great time playing with him. So
amazing.
can't
No,
ask for much more than that, right?
No, I spoke to Geoff after the event actually. Just told him I love the list because obviously me and you were talking about the list beforehand, and I wanted it to win.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's just no frills. I'm going to run at you. I'm going to kill you, and if I don't kill you, I'm going to get tabled list. I love it. It's so good.
And for him, getting tabled, not as bad as everyone else, because at least you got like 600 points of Doomseekers or whatever that don't count.
I think it was potentially more than that because he had the Rune of Dishonored as well. So I think it was like an 800 point swing. I think.
There you go.
Which is kind of brilliant. I love it. I'm so happy he had a good event as well. He said he had an amazing time, so that's always really good.
Yeah, he killed it apparently. So proud of him for that.
No, I love it. So after the first day, what were the kind of expectations going into it? Did everyone think that there was going to be a clear winner, or was it still all kind of up in the air?
With the number of players we ended up with, there were going to be 5 players who were undefeated going into round 4, and then potentially 3 players undefeated, which is what happened going into round 5. Luckily for us, Claudio, who had a draw, won his last game. He was the one who got paired up against one of the undefeated players. So we ended up with a clear winner. It was kind of always the expectation that even if you went undefeated, you might have to have good tiebreakers to actually win best general. It was fortunate for us that it worked out okay that way.
So it's always nice when you can actually get kind of like a clear winner and you don't have any arguments at the end of the event.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. I went through there. I wanted originally to run 6 rounds. I'm very glad we did not, because I was completely exhausted at the end of this. Throughout, like after like setting up all the boards and then like 20 hours of running around answering questions and stuff. It was a lot. So
I was gonna say, like, when we were talking the night before, when you were just getting everything sorted, it's so much work, isn't it?
Yeah, I also foolishly last minute promised to lend some Knights of the Realm to one of my friends who was playing in the event, and of course our event was battle standard painted, so everything had to be painted, and I had to, like, at 12 o'clock on Friday, I had to paint 4 Knights of the Realm because I didn't have all them painted yet. So that was an experience, and then got up at like 5:30 the next day and went down to the venue. So
I love the fact that you were panic painting the night before a tournament that you're not even playing.
Yeah, I wasn't even playing. Yeah,
I couldn't even imagine that. That'd annoy me so much, actually. I think
it was my own fault. I promised them, so I had to follow through. Right?
Yeah. So, is this the first Old World event that you've ran yourself?
For Warhammer Old World, yes. I'm a bit of an old school player, and I used to work at one of the hobby shops in Ontario. So back in the day, I used to run Warhammer 8th Edition and 7th Edition events, and veteran Magic the Gathering player and judge, and also many 40k War Machine and Hordes, all kinds of other things. So as far as like organizing an event, I've done it many times before, but for Old World specifically, this was my first one.
How did you find the old? Did you find it ran smoother than the older editions? I think there's a lot less feel bads in this edition. Like if we're talking back to like sixth, seventh edition, if you win combat by one, you could just destroy an enemy army straight away. Like in turn two, if you get all your charges off. Eighth edition, if you lose your big brick straight away, your game's done. Whereas I think old worlds, there's a lot more kind of give and take in a lot of the games, and I think there's a lot less feel bads.
Yeah, I think almost every game at the tournament, I think people were having a really good time and fun. There was one board that got a little bit salty in the later rounds, but like some timely intervention. Val and I went to de-escalate, and we figured it out. And then they had a productive, happy game, so it ended up okay. I do think Old World. I agree with you. It has more push and pull. Even when you're down early, you're not always necessarily going to be able to come back and win, but you can definitely fight for an 8-12 loss instead of a 1-19 loss, right? And that makes a big difference over a long tournament if you're trying to eke out every point you can.
I mean, a game can be going really badly for you in like turn one, turn two, and you can actually bring that around. Like I've
Mhm.
had it a few times where it's looking really bad, and then you just manage to like win the grind. I think a lot of people forget it is a dice game at the end of the day, so anything could potentially happen.
Yeah, for sure. This is a very swingy game as well. Like a couple dice rolls can completely warp everything going on, and with the way that like units fleeing works in this game, there's so many niche little scenarios that can just completely warp like how a game turns out. So yeah, never in my opinion, until the fat lady sings, you don't give up in this one, because there's always like a game still to play. And for me, like I love losing anyway. Like I don't try to lose, but there's definitely like a sense of like it's my time to get the bad dice rolls, or my time to make a silly mistake. So I'm always able to have fun with that. I hope that kind of attitude is prevalent in the community, because everyone is going to lose when you play this game, because it is such a swingy game. So
Yeah, I'm exactly the same at events actually. Like as soon as it starts to get real bad for me, I just go with it then, and I'm just like, right, I'm going to fail all my saves. Yep, called it, failed them all. Just because when the dice gods abandon you, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's like I had a really fun game. One of the last events I was at playing at Beastmen, and normally for the type of army that I run, Beastmen is a relatively straightforward game for me. But I just didn't pass a single save. I just didn't hit a single thing. I got like hyper focused on killing the Viletide wizard, and just the entire army just tabled me in like 2 turns. And I was like, "What's going on?"
yep.
But it was a really good game. I had a really good time. But yeah, the dice is just a cruel mistress sometimes.
Burl, nothing else you can say really. Yeah, sometimes you just you can't roll the dice to save your life, and you just try to do the best you can, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So we've just spoken about us losing games. Should we talk about some people that didn't lose that many games? So first up, taking the win at the event was Adam Slutsky,
Mhm.
which he potentially has the best name I have ever heard in my
Yeah.
entire life.
He gets that a lot. Adam's a good friend of mine. He is from Buffalo, New York, which is pretty close to here. So he often comes across the border and wins a lot of events around here. So he brought more or less his bog standard chaos list. He opted for chosen knights instead of his second unit of dragon ogres, which after a lot of playing, I actually do agree with him now. I think it's a great unit. The main advantage of that is you get to flee, and the dragon ogres, of course, are immune to psychology. So
Yep.
having a unit that's a little more flexible is quite important. Otherwise, it's everything you would expect. He's got Zinch Sorcerer Lord with the Infernal Puppet. He's got Chaos Lord tooled out. He's got some Forsaken, and that's more or less the list, right? So he
Yeah,
plays it really
yeah,
tight.
100%.
Practiced a lot.
No, I like it. It's definitely a strong army. Interesting as well that a Warriors of Chaos list is taking the top prize, because I know a lot of people have kind of not shit on them a little bit since Bretonia and the Wood Elves and stuff have been on the rise, as well as the Tomb Kings coming up, and this the Goblin 90 brick as well.
Yep.
So it's quite interesting to see Warriors Chaos back at the top again.
Yeah, our event was perhaps overrepresented by both Warriors of Chaos and High Elves. Each of them were 10 players. Just by numbers alone, you would probably expect the winner to be High Elves or Warriors of Chaos based on that alone. But in this case, like, Adam has played a lot with this army and he knows it really well, and he's just a good player. So I feel like he just has the right stuff. He did dodge Bretonia. He didn't play Bretonia the whole tournament, which was probably fortunate for him. That's more than likely his least advantageous matchup. So
I think something that a lot of people don't probably mention in tournaments is like it's 100%. Like, so you've got player skill, which I would say is 50% of it. Then you've got army, which is probably 20%. And then the rest of that is definitely what you play against over the weekend. So there is a hefty luck uh, kind of that comes into when you're playing events, because sometimes you can just have a really good run, or you could just play against the stuff that you can't play into for 5 games, which is always a little bit rough.
yeah. That's if you're coming to a tournament and you're trying to finish the top tables, putting thought towards what do you think everyone else is going to play is a huge factor, because there are some armies out there that match up quite well against others, and if you think you can find a niche where you're going to end up in the advantage position more often than not, then go for it. If you have the minis and you have the expertise to do it.
Yeah, it's if you know that the Bretts are going to be up there, you take something that counters the Bretts. If you know that it's going to be Warriors of Chaos after they've got a nice little cheeky win at the S-Spot Toronto, then there might be some of them coming up in the next couple of tournaments. So if you can proc your army into playing against that, you'll probably have a bit of a nicer time in the field, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's always a concern. At this one, I know everyone was scared of Bretonians, so I don't know to what extent people tried to tool up their list to handle Pegasus swarms, but for the most part, the only Bretonian player who did very well was Caleb.
So next up in second place, we have Claudio Paula, and also running the Warriors of Chaos. So this is the stunning Wolves of the Sea list that we saw earlier that was on the really cool base. Like it's almost pretty standard, I think, for a lot of the Wolves of the Sea lists that are kind of coming forward. It's just bodies everywhere, and it's just really hard to deal with.
Yeah, so Claudio brought Wolves of the Sea. He has a Demon Prince with the things you would expect. It flies, Mark of Tzeentch, level 4, Battle Magic, of course. He has the Armor of Silvered Steel, Infernal Puppet, and the Favor of the Gods. I think the reason you go for the puppet on the Demon Prince in this list is you're restricted in which characters you can take. If you do take a Demon Prince, you can't take an Exalted or a Sorcerer Lord, so you kind of have to concentrate all of that in one spot. He also has an Exalted Champion that is his BSB with Mark of Nurgle, a Flail, the Ruby Ring of Ruin, Brazen Collar. He's given it Poisonous Slime and Enchanting Aura as well for the gifts, and it's on a Gorby's Chariot. He's got 3 units of Warhounds, just as kind of nice little chaff redirector units. Marauder Horseman, Mark of Corn with flails, of course. And then 3 units of Marauder Tribe Berserkers, which are one of the unique units for Wolves of the Sea. He's given them flails, and each of them has a unit champion. And also he's decided to ambush all of them, which is not something that I typically do or see people do, but that's definitely an interesting choice. So that rounds out his core, and then for the rest of his army, he's got, looks like 10 Marauder Tribe Huskarls, which are the medium cavalry for the Wolves of the Sea. They are Mark of Chaos Undivided. Looks like he's given the Paymaster's coin to his unit champion in that unit, presumably to win the start of game challenge.
Yeah, that's going to be the one that he's going to be putting forward for that, isn't it?
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be another obvious unit champion for it. So that seems like the one he's going to go for. They've got Drilled, of course, in the Icon of Darkness. He's got 4 Skin Wolves with a unit champion, which are just, as we talked about before, are just a fantastic unit. I'm a big fan of those. And then rounding it out, he's got a Chaos Giant.
Interesting that he's taken a giant.
Yeah, in the age of the gigantic spawn, I'm not as sold on the giant. I still think it's a fine model, but when you can take Dragon, I guess in this army he can't take a Shaggoth because he doesn't have the Dragon Order unit. But that, or the giant spawn, or the Warfire Dragon, even it's tough to justify the Chaos Giant these days. He had a really cool mini, as you saw. Yep. It's like a reference to Kiss. It's got all the face paint and stuff on it. So yeah.
I love the level of hobby. It's great. That's what
Yeah,
tournaments are about.
yeah, the combination of theme and the tabletop coming together really makes something special for sure.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right though. So nowadays, when you can get the one or two giant spawns, I think that that's potentially going to lose its spot in his army going forward. I can imagine. Although he's done really well at this event, so he might just keep it in as a bit of a kind of like a swerve, maybe.
It could, yeah. It's still valid if you really want not to have to rely on the random move. You know, it does just move normally, so there is that. But who knows? When he comes to the next event, he could be running that same model as a giant spawn instead. So,
Yeah, or running two of them probably.
yeah, fair.
Yeah, I do really rate them. I mean, for the points cost, like they're just crazy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. When I first saw the Arcane Journal, I was kind of blown away, especially by the Corrin one. I know the meta across the pond is a bit more shooting favored,
Mhm.
so for you guys, perhaps the Nurgle one is a bit more enticing. But around here, the idea of having killing blow on your impact hits and stomps is it's a bit exciting to me. You can eat up, and in fact, I think at this very tournament there were multiple like Bretonian barons that got killing blowed by a corn spawn. So yeah, it
Love
just
to see
happened, right?
it.
Yeah,
Love to see it. It's interesting that the metas are so different actually, because over here it's kind of we're building into, I would say, like a denial kind of meta at the moment. People say meta is this really bad thing, but it's kind of the armies that we're kind of playing and enjoying as well, and
Mhm.
trying to just outfox each other. So everyone's going for a more defensive, a bit longer range, keep each other back, or just going hell for leather and just chucking loads of T6 monsters around. It's kind of at that point at the moment.
Yeah. I would say it's similar here. Just fewer people just to go for the former option, and more people go for the latter option. People really like their big monsters, and they spend a lot of time painting their nice centerpiece models. So like seeing them on the table and seeing them successful on the table is like more reinforcement for that. And I think there is still kind of like a lingering stigma for some of the older players of like the gunline army. Like when I was a teenager, that was always like the boogeyman. It was like, ooh, my opponent has a gunline army. That's certainly a concern for like how you are perceived with your gunline. You don't want to be like the jerk, right? So
Yeah.
I hope that does kind of go away, because I think it is an important part of the game. It is certainly a difference between where we play and you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, I do find it really funny because dwarves still kind of had this stigma from 7th edition, from 8th edition, but also I think everybody's quite aware that they're not doing very well. So there's this kind of really weird mix of people being like, "Oh, I don't want to play against the dwarves," but then saying that dwarves are crap at the same time, which is kind of this really weird kind of kind of zone that we're in at the moment, which is just a bit strange.
Yeah, that's not an envious position. I think that kind of sucks, because I think dwarves are really cool and they have a lot to offer. So hopefully, just with continuing to talk about them and then continuing to play in events, you'll eventually beat that stigma, and make people like playing against
Yeah,
dwarves and like seeing dwarves. Yeah.
this is a thing. Like I've been to loads of events now, trying to just give people good games, give them fun games, and just try and get more people playing dwarves. Because I know, especially at the beginning of the edition, there was a lot of kind of like everyone was kind of moaning about them, and it is a pretty of a hefty nerf from 8th edition, where some of the other armies didn't particularly get as much of a nerf, and obviously the power shifts from 8th edition to this, whereas Bretonia and Khemri were absolutely terrible in 8th edition, and now they're coming out as the absolute powerhouses that they are
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Certainly, things change when there's such a big shift in the game. Kind of goes without saying. It's been 10 years since the eighth edition stuff kind of wrapped up. You would expect a big topsy turvy experience for a lot of armies that were kind of the have-nots before, and now are blessed with unimaginable riches, like Bretonia and Tomb Kings in this edition are just kind of shamefully too powerful. But yeah, what can you do?
Everyone deserves their time in the sun. It's exactly the same for greenskins as well. I'm so happy that greenskins are finally actually a playable faction. They've just been a meme for like what 40 years now. Like, sorry for any greenskin players that have been playing for years, but they've just been terrible. Like, animosity just ruins your
Yeah,
games. You couldn't be competitive before, but now you're good.
yeah. I am personally a greenskin enjoyer. Like, I love all kinds of goblins, all kinds of orcs. Yeah, seeing them have like, in my opinion, probably the most balanced and like there's not really that many kind of like lacking units in their book. Almost everything is like at least somewhat playable. They've got some units that are all stars, but overall, on the whole, one of the most well balanced factions in this edition, I believe. So
They're just kind of they're just brilliant, and you can build into so many different kind of ways to play them as well. They're just really fun. You can make a super characterful army as well. So talking about armies that used to be absolutely dog shit and now they're really good. So third place with Beastman was Christian.
Christian is another local player for Toronto, and he also regularly takes down our smaller tournaments. So him placing well was definitely something I expected. Beastmen on the whole, I would say, are probably not one of the, in my opinion, one of the favorites to win a big tournament like this. You know, he had a great list and he's a good player. So what else can you expect? He played a lot of things you would expect. He's got the Great Bray Shaman, the Hag Tree Fetish on a chariot, doing all the normal stuff like the Vile Tide and all that. He's got a Doom Bull that's his general with Giant Blade, Armored Meteoric Iron, Talisman of Protection, and Gouge Tusks. And kind of the idea behind him is that with the Gouge Tusks and then the unit he's in is going to have the Totem of Rust. It's kind of like a discount Ogre Blade. It does multiple wounds. He's like strength 7 or 8 or something, and he has AP of 2 already. And then if you get Plague of Rust, AP of 4, so it really adds up. Rounding it out, he's got Bray Shaman, level 2 elementals, and with Earthing Rod just as a backup shooting piece with another Vile Tide, and then a Wargore Battle Center Bearer with Slug Skin, which is the -1 to hit for the whole unit. So another key piece in his big gore unit. For his core, he's got 2 units of Warhounds, much the same as the Warriors of Chaos Army. He's got that aforementioned Gore Herd unit, 20, it looks like 30 of them. Full command with the Totem of Rust, which is the -1 armor for everyone within 6. A little unit of Gore Herds of 9 strong that are ambushing, presumably just as a core filler. And then 2 Minotaurs, one with a shield, one with a great weapon, and they're also ambushing. And then rounding out his army, he's got 2 units, identical units of Dragon Ogres with heavy armor, great weapon, and a Dragon Ogre Shaggoth with the blackened plate and a great weapon.
I mean, we know exactly what that army's going to do. It's going to rush forward in one big wave. It's going to Vile Tide and Hag Tree Fetish, your kind of key piece, and then the entire wave of it's going to hit you and just try and do as much damage as possible.
Yep, pretty straightforward army. The Gore Herd is a bit of a nastier unit than you would expect if you've never played against it before. With all of the stacking buff elements, it really is usually not something you want to fight. When I play against this, I don't fight that unit in much the same way as if I'm fighting against a dwarf opponent with a huge unit of hammerers or iron breakers. You just don't. Like it's usually just not worth it unless you have some kind of overwhelming advantage.
Yeah, you just want to play the avoidance game with stuff like that.
Yep.
And that's the problem with if you make a unit too good. I mean, obviously, if you're playing a foot-slogging army, you're probably going to have to engage with that, which is probably unfortunate for you, because being -1 or -2 to hit is just really annoying to deal with, I think.
Yeah. The minus to hit combined with some of the other Beastman stuff he has going on just makes it a really difficult unit to crack. It's got a lot of combat resolution for what it is, and then the Doom Bull just hits like a ton of bricks. I believe the last time I played against Christian's army like this, my Ogre Tyrant on a Stonehorn charged into this unit with a unit of Mournfang, and we lost. So the Doom Bull just tanked my my Tyrant, and then my Mournfang just didn't do enough damage to break him. So
yeah, it's the other thing is like you kind of when you're talking about these lists and you're like, oh, that's a really strong unit. What you forget as well is that unit's going to tie you in, and then the rest of his army is going to slam into your flanks or in your ear.
Yeah, for sure. In this army, with the 2 units of Dragon Ogres and the Shaggoth, he's got lots of outflanker and kind of just like rough and tough, hold down the side kind of units. So very solid army. I know he actually played into Charlotte, who was another one of the other strong players at the tournament, with her Tomb King army. And pretty much it was just kind of a matchup of like a really strong shooting army that you're probably familiar with 12 bow Shabti and a huge poison archer unit and 2 caskets. And Christian's army just didn't really have an answer for that. Like the Dragon Ogres get shot to pieces, and the Gore Herds, while they are really strong, they're quite slow. They only get to combat on turn 4 or 5. So yeah, they only have a few turns to do the business.
Yeah, Khemri definitely has a lot of answers going into that. Like the Ushabti can just take down anything that's multi-wound, and then the poison really does damage into the gauze.
Yeah,
Like
$100%.
there's not much you can do into that kind of list unless you can really kind of outfox them and stop some of the key spells. But that's a pretty rough game, actually.
Yeah, even still, the Gores don't get any armor. All those bow shots are gonna hit home.
Yeah, yeah. What size was the poison unit? Was it about
Oh,
45 or?
yeah, I do believe so.
It's a pretty the kind of the standard list that's going around. It's a really strong list. So, where did she place overall?
Charlotte was 5th place.
Nice.
Yeah, so she did quite well. The only loss she had was to Adam, who was the eventual winner. She had a great tournament. I think it was one of her first in-person Old World tournaments. So congrats to her.
Oh, amazing! Like doing that well on your first event. That's just good.
Nicely painted army, and yeah, it was all good to go. As far as this tournament, we are going to be hosting another one. I'm not sure exactly when yet. It's likely going to be spring of 2025, trying to just keep springboarding up and keep growing, keep getting more people out. I know there's also going to be Andrew, who helped us with the terrain, is hosting a team tournament at some point, I think in May of 2025.
Nice.
For Old World, and that's going to be a great event locally. The one kind of tragic thing about our tournament we just ran was that Rob from your scene was going to fly out, and then 2 days before his flight he got COVID, so that was it, right? So
Nightmare. I messaged him because I didn't know, and I literally I messaged him and I was like, mate, I'm so sorry. Like it's just such bad luck. Like I know
yeah,
he's really looking forward to it as well.
it was a big shame. Like obviously we would have loved to have him there, and then like I know a lot of people are looking forward to hanging out with him and playing a game with him or having a beer with him or whatever. Yeah, it just sucked. Nothing else, not much else to be said about that. But next time, obviously, we're gonna try again, and hopefully the germ world will cooperate with us, and we can all have a big happy square based family. And
Yeah, hopefully. Well, I'll to be fair, I think I'm going to try and come to the next one as well. Actually, it did look like a really good event. So,
oh man,
plus
I would love to have you. Yeah.
yeah. Plus, I need to actually venture over the other side of the pond. I've never been over actually.
Oh, cool. I've been to Europe, including I went to Heathrow in London, and then laid over there, and then did a Europe tour before COVID happened. And I
Okay,
would
I
love
thought
to
you
go
were just
back.
going to say that you'd just been to Heathrow. Then I was at that.
No, no,
Disappointing.
we did like the 1 day of touristy stuff in London, and then moved on. But I would love to come back, and I would love to play some Warhammer next time I go. I obviously here we don't really have big organized Games Workshop events anymore. Proper Games Workshop. So going to Warhammer World would be its own like quest and like fun thing of its own to see all the cool stuff. And I'm sure like there's tons. The big community is so vibrant over there that you have a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, like we've got a really good community over here. To be fair, you'd just be able to stay at anyone's house and play some games around there, or if you want to go up to the TSN or any of the other events going on. I mean, there's quite a lot going on in the UK. It is quite good at the moment, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, one day, probably the next time Val decides to go over, I'll come with him, but we'll see.
Yeah, come on over. Hopefully, we can get a game in real life rather than just on
Sure.
Warble.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
Little grudge before the tournament starts.
I'm working on. I'm not quite finished my Bretonian army in real life yet. But of course, in true gamer fashion, I've already moved on to my next army. So I have several projects on the go, Warhammer wise, but maybe one day one of those armies will make it across. See how they
Oh,
do.
I love it. I'm feverishly printing a Slayer army because I hate myself and I love Geoff's army.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I think
Yes.
it's gonna be awesome. The one thing about that army is that I think rule of 3 really kills it, because
Yeah.
it's clearly supposed to be able to take 8 Doomseekers or whatever, and then you can't. So what can you do, right?
I know. Even in the journal, it's like, right, you can't take any more than 8. It's like we're not allowed anyway.
Yeah, it's a shame. One day I'll convince people that rule of 3 is not good for the game, and then justice will prevail. But we don't live in that world right now, so that's how it is.
No, that's probably a whole kettle of fish that we don't want to open, I think.
Well, I got to put it out there because propaganda is the first step to victory, my friend. So
That is true. That is true. Right. Thank you very much for coming on to the show. It's been great to see the event and it looked really good. And I'll hopefully try and come to the next one. Thank you very
awesome.
much for coming.
Yeah, it was a blast, and yeah, great to talk to you, and hope to see you in person someday. Cool.
Perfect. Right. Take care, guys. Bye.